It's an honor to be here. And I thought, well, this is an intimidating subject to talk about embracing the true spirit of Christmas. And this is a time when most of the world, or at least the English-speaking world, is celebrating and partying and stuff like that. And we know that there are so many people that find this the hardest time of life also. And we experienced growing up. I grew up in Africa, and Christmases were just an amazing time of year. But a couple of years ago, our only son committed suicide just a few days prior to Christmas. And so ever since, it's been like, oh my, Christmas has changed for us uh, in so many different ways. And we know that's just the tip of the iceberg. So there's so many people who are expressing pain and anguish because the memories of the past and the present things that are happening. So I thought, well, how can I give benefit? How because I'm a very practical person. I believe that when we're helping people struggle through their issues, it's important that we also give them a sense of what can I do to make this Christmas not one of trauma and remembering the good times that will never come back again and that type of thing. How can I make this time of the year meaningful and keeping in the spirit of Christmas? I thought, well, I could go down the road of just figuring out how to make decorations and how to make your environment happy and Christmas-like, but that's such a surface thing. So this is what I just like to do in the few minutes, and in our discussion time, you can tell me if this is of any value at all. Uh, I was thinking of the incident in Matthew 14 where the disciples are out in the boat, and it's early morning, and a storm comes up in the Sea of Galilee, and all of a sudden they see in the darkness of the morning a figure, Jesus, walking on the water to them, and they're in fear, except Peter, of course, who's this, puts his mouth in gear before his mind, and he says, "That's you, Lord. Bid me to come to you, and I will come." So Jesus says, "Come," and so we have Peter walking on the water to Jesus, and then he gets within grasping distance of him, and all of a sudden he sees the winds and disturbing the waves, and he begins to sink. And the fear, of course, is that he would drown. He didn't know how deep the water is because just moments ago he was walking on it, and Jesus did something very interesting. And I noticed when I read that this morning, it's like Jesus didn't kneel down on the water and say, "Now come on, Peter, you can do it. You can get out of this. You just put one hand, just stiffen up and you can do this, Peter. Stand up." He doesn't do that at all. He doesn't admonish him. He doesn't preach to him. The scriptures say that he reached down and he grabbed him and he lifted him up. So the analogy to me is there are people who are sinking with the fear of drowning in the tinsel of Christmas. All around them, it's like confusing, and everyone else is happy. How do you help those people, those individuals who are really struggling with this whole festive season? I think the example of Jesus is Jesus grabbed them, held them up, and within moments they were back in the boat, and the storm went down. I want to encourage people who are struggling with the joy of Christmas, and it's not so joyous to them. There's three things I wrote down, and these are three things that my wife and I have used a lot to help us get through what could be a very anguish time of year, and this is the three things I want to encourage people to do to make Christmas real to them, to get at the real heart of Christmas. Remember, we were celebrating the coming of God into the world. That's what that momentous event. The world was never going to be the same again. So here's what I would suggest to people who are struggling uh, with the often challenging pain of Christmas. Um, that is, number one, look for a person who seems to be drowning. Look for a person who seems to be struggling. They don't need you to come and preach to them. They don't need you to come and say, "Oh, it'll be all right, and this too will pass," and have some more eggnog. They need someone like you to come and grab them, uh, to put your arms around them and say, "Come on up, we can do this together." Uh, you can't do this by yourself, Peter. You had great faith to get you there. I mean, there are only two people who walked on the water, Jesus and Peter. I mean, can you imagine what a small group of people did that? Uh, but, but all of a sudden, the first thing Jesus says when he gets back in the boat is, "Oh, you have little faith." That's what the scriptures say. On one moment, he had great faith; things were going so well, so well, and all of a sudden, he saw the wind, he saw the storm, he saw the fear, and his faith just seeped out. Number one, find someone who seems to be drowning or the fear of drowning. I can't take it all over. Um, uh, Number two, visit someone outside of your normal uh, round of activities that normally doesn't have anybody that is lonely, and spend some time with them. So concentrate on one person. Give yourself this is the time of year that people need to talk about soul issues. Like, why am I dreading this time of year type of thing? Um, and don't look for someone. Uh, this is number three. Don't look for someone to come and 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 encourage you. You do the looking, because I think part of the problem that we're engaged in, the reason we're so sad, you know, when my mom and dad made Christmas for kids, they did a lot of work. And, we had 5 kids, and I know my wife especially did a lot of the work in making, the dinners and the wrapping the presents, and you just sort of walked in as a kid, and you received all the things that people were giving you. That's a lot of work, and we kind of miss that as we get older. Uh, People aren't doing that for us, but we want them to do that for us. So I'm saying, instead of kind of wanting people to do that for us again, which is kind of I think our secret desire. You do it for other people. Um, you come alongside other people and do something special for them. I've always maintained, when I was at the chaplain at the seniors home there, we had 300, call them neighbors. Uh, um, I encourage older men to find younger men to mentor. I encourage older women to find younger women to mentor. And I get a lot of pushback from some of them saying, "Well, I what do I have to give? I don't think I can do that. I'm not trained. I know there's people who can take courses in mentoring." I said, "No, younger women need you, older women. Younger men, you need an older man in your life. Someone that you can see as a young guy and that you get along with. You can't get along with everybody. I know that. There's maybe one person. Just look for one person that you can come into their life. I have 5 young guys up right now, and I've had them for maybe 10 years, and I've come alongside them, and I said, I really sense that God is calling me into your life, and I want to be in your life for the rest of my life. You're going to be living longer than I am, probably. um, would you be interested in developing this relationship?" And they've all said yes, and that was like, I've had them mostly for the last 10 years. It energizes me and encourages them. Um, and it takes you out of your own self. Part of the struggle of, of dealing with festivities where everyone is kind of celebrating together and everyone's got a happy smile on and a glass of eggnog, and the turkey's steaming and wonderful. Is the inner life isn't exactly match that. uh, after the dinner, after the party, after the festivities, we go home, sometimes to an empty apartment, sometimes to just an empty room where our spouse once slept beside us, and we are overwhelmed overwhelmed with the solitude of life. And we knew it was coming, right? But when it comes, it's hard to take because we've never experienced such solitude. And even in a large church or in a big family, you can feel alone. You can feel alone. So this is kind of an intentional inward um, looking, but outward focused exercise that if you get serious about it, it can give you a whole different view on how you spend your time in this festive season. And and what it does, I believe, is nourishes your soul. It, it it gets you looking not at your own needs as much as fulfilling the needs that you have to be significant in the lives of some other person. We all miss the importance of being significant. I think saddest conversations I've had with some seniors and some elders is in talking to people who had once busy, involved life. Now there's no one calling them, no one visiting them, no one caring what they say. At one point, when they spoke, people listened. Now they can speak and no one listens. It's sad. So I'm saying, how can we change that? Now, not everyone will receive this. I understand. But to those who will receive it, um, there will happen a change in your life, and others will notice it and perhaps follow suit, which I think is a really good thing. So invite another person into your house. Uh, uh, Look for someone who is sinking alone, and and be intentional and have a conversation that will result in further meetings that you can input, and you'll learn something from them. Also, it's not just a one-way street. Visit others who don't have anyone caring for them, and that will delight your heart. About a year and a half into the COVID thing, I remember as a chaplain, I was visiting this room with one lady who was in her late 80s, and she was sitting by her window, and I said, "I've just come to want to read some scripture with you and have a word of prayer." She says, "Oh, that would be wonderful." And after that, I prayed with her, and I started walking out of the room, and I listened. I heard her coming after me, and I said, "Is there something I missed?" She said, I haven't had anyone to visit me for all over a year. Could uh, could I have a hug?" And I looked at her, and then I looked around because at that particular time we were told we must not hug any of the clients, and everyone had to wear masks and all the rest of it. And I knew that I shouldn't hug because those are the rules. And I thought I was looking around to make sure no one was watching me, and there was no one. So I gave her a hug, and she just melted in my arms. And she said, "Oh, I haven't had anyone hug me that for such a long time." And she walked away. I thought, wow. First of all, I felt guilty that I was going to be hugging this person, and there's something wrong about that. But that was the whole craziness of COVID. But and then I realized, boy, that one of the biggest problems we had during COVID was we had to stay away from people and don't touch and all the rest of it. It was very, very sad. But it reminded me of the human touch. And it's not the programs, it's not the tinsel, it's not the food on the table. It's the relationships, and how many elders, in particular, don't have those relationships anymore. They just don't, and they need it. So you can't change the world. You can change the life of one or two individuals. So those are the practical things. I just going to do it for 15 minutes. I think I've done it 15 minutes. So I hope I didn't talk too fast. I hope you got something out of it. God bless. So now we can have a time of questions, I guess.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Warwick, for your contribution and your talk. And it is greatly appreciated. And I think just to add and emphasize what you said is I've strangely had a good relationship with young guys, probably just around their 20s for the last 3-4 years. And they are if you'd met them, you'd never think that I would have a relationship with them. You know, they are just so different. And yet we get together on a Sunday evening, we have a Bible study together, and just chat about their week and other things as well. And it has been a great blessing. And so I think just that input into what you were saying, and just to recommend a book, which is just called The Value of Wrinkles, which is excellent because older people have much wisdom to share and they impact the lives of so many. Well, now is our opportunity to ask questions and make comments. Please feel free to either use the chat or preferably just ask Warwick yourself. We're probably all struggling with the same issues, and sometimes we're just unable to formulate that question. So you may be asking the question for someone else who just can't find the right words. So if anybody would like to ask a question, please feel free to just unmute yourself or write in chat and just ask the question.
Good to see Merv Simpson there. I haven't seen you in years, man. I thought you'd passed already, but obviously you're very much alive.
Thanks for that. Good to see you.
Carrie Lynn, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, well, no, that was great work. Yeah, thanks so much. We have, well, I'll speak for myself personally. My husband was really sad about not being able to come today, but he was committed otherwise. We not only have teams of people that are diverse culture and diverse age groups, and we actually consider ourselves not the city leaders in long-term care, but we consider ourselves mentors and cheerleaders for each one of these. And just this morning, I had a volunteer reach out to me and say, I'm really struggling, you know, this, that, and whatever. And we just turn them to God. We turn them to scripture. I called her up. We prayed together. And she's considerably younger. We have students right out of university that Orlo is so good with these young men. And I mentor all of the ladies, I mean, right up to 76 years old. Where we're coming together and just sharing faith and God's role in all of this. We don't have to walk and guess. We just need to walk and listen, and God will lead us. Also with Connecting Streams, who is a part of Power to Change in Canada, there is a digital strategies, and so I'm actually volunteering as a mentor, and we mentor individuals, you know, on their search for Jesus. Of Muslims, I have Sikhs, I have Buddhists, I have people that think God is just a fairy tale, but mentoring them across the world, in all countries. Some actually contacted me from Gaza recently, which has been phenomenally enlightening to what's really happening and what the news is saying. But all of that being said, what it has done for me was unexpected and absolutely jaw-dropping spiritually. I now not only see God working in my life and in the individuals that I volunteer with in long-term care and have discussions, intentional spiritual discussions with them, but I am seeing God's hand in transforming people across the globe and in all situations and in the lives of our volunteers, seeing them go from being extremely nervous and not knowing what to talk about to a young man who wrote this. We always collect stories from the volunteers at for Christmas time to share with our donors and other people. And I just want to read you this couple of sentences. He was sharing about him um, um, reaching out and visiting. He visits two elderly young men in the long-term care, and it's just I'll just call him Sam, the elder. Sam and I had a very nice chat again. He told me about a lady on his floor, and he went on to say that. And he said, then I went on to visit Dale. I get the feeling Dale really likes to take things seriously. And this young man is 23 years old that's writing this. He likes to take things seriously. He tells me about Christian ministry and what his goals were when he did it and what my goals should be. He likes to teach me. He also sings your praises, Pastor, and says that I can learn a lot from you. I reminded him again how I work with connecting streams as well as the mentorship I received there. He thinks I am going to be he thinks I'm going to be great at ministry. Now here's a young man who's meeting with a 90-ish older gentleman in long-term care, who is not only stoking his fire for the ministry and learning from an ancient expert, but he's also giving purpose to the retired pastor who is now finding himself in long-term care. And so it's just incredibly exciting to watch and to be a small and humble part of that. So I guess that's just really what it is. I'm really interested in teaching them personally how to rely on their own stories of where God has moved in their life and their relationship, because that way it's not preaching at them, but they can share how God has been faithful, and that tends to work really good with our folks.
Yeah.
So thank you, Warwick. I know my husband will be listening to your recording and really, really grateful as well.
I think the biggest challenge we have in this whole area is to really listen to other people. I have all kinds of answers in my mind, but a lot of the answers, no one's asking those questions anymore. so I'm answering yesterday's questions, and people don't. And it takes some work to actually listen to people, and we all think, I've been in Christian ministry for 60 years or so, or maybe not, I'll say 10 years, it sounds better. I've listened to a lot of things, but I still have so much more to learn because things keep on moving, and to actually listen to somebody, that takes work, and people want to be understood. To say that, oh, you understand me means a lot, because most people, they just write me off or whatever, right? And I think that's one of the first things we can give to each other, is really listening to each other's hearts, and not assuming that we know just because, oh, I've dealt with your kind before. No, everyone is unique in God's eyes, but I thank God that He listens to us. But oh, that we would listen like God listens. not just with our ears, but with our hearts.
I think also in that listening, Warwick, that we're always trying to fix things. We're always trying to fix people. In that listening, instead of being totally engaged in the listening and really taking in what they're saying, just as a simple gift of the conversation, and giving them a caring vessel to pour into, we're already trying in our mind to, what are we going to say? Well, how are we going to respond?
Yeah.
And you miss so much of what it is they're saying because your
Yep.
brain is working on that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think perhaps added to that is a comment from Vincent Deng, and I think I've got that right, where he's working as a overnight with seniors in dementia, in a retirement home, which is really an international community. Many of the seniors have Catholic, Anglican, British culture background. Some have Eastern European, some have Jewish culture. My personal favorite, maybe you're close to my own Christian background, a little bit resident in Latina culture. How to pray to all of our precious residents while working overnight here? That is the question. To pray for all of them. How do we do it, and how do we do it effectively?
Well, of course, it begs the question. We have to have a living, vital relationship with God ourselves, and that to me is the most important thing. And I believe if you pay attention to that, your own relationship with God, I believe He can take you through all kinds of situations that He'll show up, and you'll surprise yourself. So, before we're sensitive to other people, we need to be sensitive to God, right? And I know that sounds simplistic, but I think it's profoundly simplistic. and Occam's razor says, the simpler explanations are often the most accurate. So that would be my answer.
Thank you very much. I just wonder, is there anybody here who is perhaps dealing with difficult situations at this time of the year? I think Dr. Cooper has kind of mentioned for his own personal experience, but others who the wounds perhaps are quite raw, perhaps, and it doesn't necessarily need to be grief, but sometimes there's distance within the family itself. Is there anybody that would like to comment either in chat or just would like to speak? Janice?
I'll share. I didn't expect this question, but it's a very good one. A year ago, at the end of November, my father of 94 passed away in a very not unexpected way, but it was in difficult circumstances. And it was right before a surgery that I had in my home area, but my father died in a different state. And I was unable to attend a part of his funeral due to the surgery circumstances. And this year, I had another surgery. 10 days ago, I had surgery on my face, which is why some things look kind of funny. I have weakness on my face. And so there's kind of a half serious, half joke in my family. Well, Jan, let's not have a third situation in December where you're not with us. Because last year in all of December, I was laid up because of that surgery. This year, I'm recovering from this surgery. And I don't want to speak that, but these things tend to happen with me. So I'm thinking about, okay, a year ago, my father died, and here I am recovering from surgery. So that's a little hard. And thankfully, I have ministry team members who are very wonderfully covering all of the 5 facilities very beautifully this month. I really praise God for that. So I really am rejoicing in that. But personally, it's a little bit of a rough time.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else would, I mean, do you want to add to that, Warwick? Just thoughts on, just health issues around the season, as well as just grief in general.
Well, I appreciate Janice speaking up, because it is difficult to kind of center in on your needs, isn't it? Even with a group like this, and just think of those who aren't used to any of this kind of stuff, right? And for someone to even begin to walk on that road, it takes a lot of courage, and very often I've seen people start off sharing even in a group, and all of a sudden they just sort of stop, because it's like they don't sense, we use that expression, is this a safe place? And in fact, it takes work to make a safe place. You just can't assume that this is a safe place just because we're all, this is a Christian organization or whatever it is. And to create safe places where people feel comfortable, they can share negative stuff and they're not going to be judged, because they're judging themselves already. And seeing pictures on Facebook of everyone's happy Christmas be very, very depressing for a lot of, especially singles. They think, well, everyone else is having so much fun. Of course, the pictures on Facebook don't show the other part of what happened after the meal, and the arguments that started, and all that. Life is messy, folks. Life is messy. But Facebook gives this idea, oh no, we're all having a wonderful time here, and there's every prospect pleases and only man is vile. And so it's like everyone else is having fun, except I'm not having fun. This is really hard. And who do I go to say that would understand, or that would even care? And it's sad. It's a very real experience. So in order to create safe environments where people can feel comfortable, that does not come naturally. It takes some work. That's why I commend groups like yours that are reaching out and saying, no, we have to deal with these issues. We have to talk about them. We have to be comfortable talking about the uncomfortable, and that helps push the ball on the road a bit, where we can be real with each other. Because we know God knows everything about us. So why are we trying to keep things from God? He already knows. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that is very true. And anybody else want to add comments? Because I'm just thinking to myself as well, Warwick, is at this time of the year where people are gathering for meals and family gatherings, work gatherings, that kind of thing, and suddenly you're not really in the mood to share. What do you do? Do you go and pretend, or do you rather just say, thanks very much, but I'm going to skip this year? How do you approach that?
Well, it takes courage to come when you don't feel like coming, and your feelings can overwhelm you. And when we let our feelings be the umpire in our life doesn't end well. We have to do the right thing in spite of our feelings. It's hard when we don't have people kind of encouraging us. It's okay if you don't feel like coming. Come anyways, and let me help you, or tell me what it is that you're fearing. And they may not even know why they're feeling they don't want to come to the Christmas thing, because they haven't been able to talk it through with people, and that's part of the problem. So we just think, well, I don't want to deal with it, so I'll stay home and not come. And they end up paying a really heavy price for that, very heavy. So I'm all for, if there's anything you can take away from the talk I give, the picture of Jesus grabbing Peter and without words, just grabbing him. I just picture Jesus holding him, in his arms and taking him into the boat. And we don't know how that happened, but we just know what happened. My prayer is that we all might find someone that we can grab and rescue, not because we can perform any miracles, but because that's what they really need to build their faith. That they need relationship, and we live in a world that is running from relationships. We're scared of it because we've all been hurt by relationships, and maybe the person that we live with all these years is now no longer here, and we don't have anyone to take that. So it's a really hard thing, but we need to talk about it at least. It begins with talking, and then the actions come. Actions are actually, I think, more important than words, because words can be cheap, but actions are more powerful. But you need both. You need both, and that's where it starts. And that's why I love even just praying with people, because to actually listen to someone praying for you to God, there's something about the words that doesn't happen normally. You're actually praying that God would give me a sense of his presence. Oh, I don't think anyone's prayed that, but wow, that's, I think words are really important, especially as we get older. We value the right word more and more. So it has to be coupled with the right actions and hugging people. We need to hug more people, folks. God wants to hug us, and he wants us to be huggers of others.
Thank you. Just another thought is we've spoken mostly about the elderly, but you're speaking about loneliness around this time of year, and we think about the international students who are here alone. They have a pretty high suicide rate. Any comments from you about that, and how members of the church can actually do something about that?
Well, I think Christmas time especially is a good time to welcome international students into your home, to experience a Canadian Christmas, for example, and like, oh, that'd be interesting. And so it's they're more likely to accept an invitation like that. And so the onus is on us to make it more than just a dinner, but a time of connecting with their hearts, and showing them, and taking the opportunity to hug them, because international students away from home for the first time, it's a desperately lonely thing. Desperately lonely. I've lived in 30 different countries, and I know that you're always a stranger, and so these young people visiting our country or studying or whatever, they feel very much still the stranger. But Christmas is a great time to break some of that, and I would caution us to not just do it for this, not just think, well, this is just a one-off event, but the beginning of building a relationship with these students. So it starts with, I think it's the easiest time to invite people to experience a Canadian Christmas, but then before they go, say, hey, let's meet together for coffee next month, or in a couple of weeks. Come on back. We're going to have a barbecue with some friends, and that's that type of thing. I think Christmas lends itself to the opening of doors. Yeah.
So Glenn, one thing that, oh, go ahead.
I was going to close. Carrie, just very quickly.
Just a really quick one. What I find is very effective at this time of year is actually the Christmas traditional hymns. There was just a really quick one. One lady was sitting very dejected and tears going down her face. And I just felt led by the Spirit. I just began to very softly, close to her, start to sing Away in the Manger. And she looked up and she started to do the actions that she would have been taught by, and she said, My mama taught me how to sing that, and
Wow.
then and Joy to the World. I tell you, some of them that are totally shut down spring up and just begin to sing. So the use of music at this time,
Mhm.
even for our non-believers, you know, we have a Sikh fellow, and we also have one that claims he doesn't grace a church and hasn't ever and whatever, but he's now in my choir singing along these old hymns that have the gospel right in them.
Yep. Mhm.
And so I just encourage you that the music does. They've either heard it in school or church or on their mama's lap or whatever, but we're finding it's just delightful to see them be alive in that music.
Mhm. Great.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Perhaps, Warwick, you could just close and sort of summarize how we as individuals and as the church can reach out to others and be reached during this time that could be quite challenging.
Well, I think one of the key things that we're reminded of at this time of year is that God chose to be God, who could have chosen any way to come into the world. He chose to come into the world in the most vulnerable way of all, to be born in a stable of a poor Jewish family that didn't have a lot of wealth or status, and the first people the news was given to were shepherds in a field. Um, and I think God is calling us, and therefore there is no excuse, because He's not saying, well, be effective, you need all of this, you need a lot of money, you need a lot of whatever. No, to be effective, you need the humility that only God can give, to humble yourself, and to live out your faith, because God became flesh and dwelt among us. That's the message of Christmas. And so I believe God's calling us all to humble ourselves and to pour our lives into the lives of those who are very, very needy. And we're not talking physical needs, we're talking spiritual needs, which are far greater at the heart of it all. And so I think the Christian church is geared, because that's the message that we preach. It needs to be the message we live, to become flesh, to humble ourselves, and to look for opportunities to share the good news that God loves us enough to become one of us, to die for us. The process is long, because it took him 33 years to complete his ministry, at the end of which he said, "It's finished." So we don't have to add to it. We just need to have the main thing, keep the main thing, and that is He died for us. And so that's what God, I think, is calling us to, especially at this time of year, back to the very beginning, in humility, serving one another, and bringing the gospel to one another in so many creative ways. Appreciate this time to share with you folks. I know God's going to use all of us in a very unique way, because He uses people who want to be used. Find the will of God, do it, and God will reward you.
Well, thank you very much, Warwick, for a really interesting time and a great conversation. And I think as we progress, we will discuss more things. It seems that this is just the opening of further conversations. We look forward to discussing other issues that come up. I would just like to end, or not, before we close with prayer, just to do this particular session the way that by sharing some the hymn that I wanted to share earlier on.
It was a long, cold winter of 1863. The war between the states raged mercilessly. Antietam, Vicksburg, Gettysburg, Chickamauga. Sons, fathers, and brothers from Mississippi to Maine had not come home for Christmas, and many would never return. Poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow sat in Cambridge, Massachusetts, pondering the state of the world around him. Longfellow had been widowed for 2 years since his wife's dress tragically caught fire, and his son, Charles, was now seriously wounded, having been injured on December 1st by a Confederate bullet at the Battle of New Hope Church. As he sat nursing his son on the long road to recovery, listening to the church bells pealing forth Christmas tidings, he struggled with the message of the angels proclaiming, "Peace on earth, goodwill towards men," and he took up his pen and wrote.
Read the Lord's blessing upon us. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and I pray and hope that you will join us next time. Thank you so much. Goodbye.